Hello, I'm Miss Piper from the Ellensburg Public Library. This is Family Stories and Conversation, where we read a book and have a chat about it. Today's story is The House by the Lake. It was written by Thomas Hardy and illustrated by Britta Teckentrup. This book was published by Candlewick Studio. The House by the Lake. A long time ago, there was a little wooden house by a lake. The house was built by a kind doctor and his cheery wife, who wanted to live with their 4 children away from the busy city. They grew asparagus and lettuce and collected eggs from their chickens. They played games in the yard and swam in the lake. At night, the doctor sat by the fire and read stories to the children. When the family was asleep, the house held their dreams. The days went around like a wheel. The sun rose, warming the walls of the house. Woodpeckers tap, tap, tapped on the trees. Ducks floated through the reeds. When the sun fell, starlight bathed the windows. This was a happy house. But as the years passed and the children grew taller, something was changing in the busy city. One day, a troop of angry men banged on the door and told the doctor and his family to leave. The table and chairs were covered with sheets. The shutters were closed, the doors were locked, and the angry men took the key. The house was now alone. A year went by, and then a new family came walking down the sandy path, carrying suitcases and musical instruments and love. The mother sang songs from the porch. The father played the piano, and the 2 boys built castles by the lake. But slowly, their music changed. The boys started marching click, click, click on the wooden floors, and the mother took down the pretty metal gutters and gave them to a man who made guns. Then a letter arrived. War was coming, and the angry men wanted the father to fight for them. So the family ran away, and cold air blew down the chimney once more. Airplane shadows kissed the roof, and the cups and plates in the kitchen rattled. The sky burned orange. A husband and a wife arrived from the city. They were friends of the musical family, and the little lake house gave them shelter from the fear and the fighting. It was a bitterly cold winter, but the house kept them safe. For a while. One chilly morning, the walls shook with the rumble of tanks. Bullets struck the house, chipping its chimney and breaking its windows. The couple fled to the city, and once again, the house was empty. Spider webs grew across the windows, and leaves piled on the porch. The paint on the shutters cracked and peeled. The house was abandoned and unloved. It stood empty for many long years. Then one day, a man with a fluffy hat came down the sandy lane. His 2 children shouted with delight and ran inside, casting light into the darkened rooms. In the spring, the man with the fluffy hat fixed the windows, the chimney, and the gutters, painted the shutters, and swept the porch. In summer, his children rode across the lake and had cake and ice cream. In winter, they sailed boats across the marbled ice. The house felt alive again. Laughter in the hallway, sandy footprints on the floor, the smell of soup bubbling in the air. One morning, the man with the fluffy hat woke to the growl of machines outside the house. Soldiers were building a giant wall through the backyard, a wall with tall towers and bright lights and barking dogs. The family hated the wall. It made everything gray. After school, the children had to work in the fields. There were no more trips across the lake, and the man with the fluffy hat spied on his neighbors. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 birthdays passed by. The children became adults. They left the house and had their own children. The grayness hung for so long that it seemed like it would never end. Then, without any warning, the soldiers and dark barking dogs went away. And the man with the fluffy hat took a big hammer and knocked the wall down. The sweet breeze from the lake blew into every nook and cranny of the house, and his grandchildren jumped into the lake, whooping and splashing as they went. The man with the fluffy hat grew old like the house. He found it harder and harder to take care of the ancient timbers and the wild garden, till one morning he didn't wake up and the house was alone once more. Its floorboards and doors were taken for firewood. Its windows were broken. Bushes and trees wrapped themselves around its tired walls, but still the house clung on. 15 winters came and went. Then a young man came down the sandy path. He took out a key, opened the door, and saw at once that the house needed help. He worked with the villagers to clean and clean. They cut back the bushes, fixed the broken floors and windows, and painted the house in bright colors. Finally, the house shone like new. The young man put a picture of his great-grandparents above the fireplace, and the walls and the floors and the windows and the doors remembered the kind doctor and his cheery wife. Once again, the house by the lake was happy. All right. If you check this book out, you will be able to read more of it. There's a whole page about the doctor and his cheery wife, the musical family, The husband and the wife from Berlin, the man with the fluffy hat, and the young man. More about their stories. And in the very beginning, there's another brief bit that I skipped so that we could experience the story new and fresh. But there's this note. On the outskirts of Berlin, beside the shore of a lake, there stands a wooden house. It was built nearly 100 years ago by my great-grandfather. He knew that his family had been forced out, but he didn't know what had happened to the house after that. To find out, I visited Berlin in 2013, 8 years ago now, and discovered the house empty, abandoned, derelict. From there, I began to piece its story together, a story that took me from the outbreak of World War II to the rise and fall of the Berlin Wall by way of 4 families. Like we talked about, it is a true story. The House by the Lake by Thomas Harding and Britta Teckentrup. Okay, The House by the Lake. I don't know about you, but I had lots of feelings while I was reading this story. I felt sad for the house, and then happy for the house, and then sad and happy again. And just kind of a downness, and certainly for the people and the families that came and went from the house. How did the story make you feel? That's question number 1. Question number 2. What kind of house do you live in? Do you know the story of your house? Are you the first family? Were there other families in your house? Do you know anything more about it? This is the interesting thing about houses, is that they sometimes have a history beyond just us. What do you think is the point of telling a story through a house, as in this case? Did it make it easier, harder to cover the history, the true story of the history of a house? Question number 4. I like to look at the art, the pictures of stories. Sometimes they give more than just the words, don't they? They certainly go along with them, and they support them in many ways. I was noticing something about the colors in this book. Did you notice anything about the colors in this book? There were parts that were very dark, gray and black, and there were parts that were very bright. How did the colors in the art, in the photos, the pictures, how did they help support the story? All right, my friends, I'm so glad you are here with me today. Have a good day, have a good week, and I will see you next time. Bye.